Stellar Crown is just around the corner, and in today's video, we're going to be looking at 10 of the best cards from the new set and why they are going to be the best cards within Stellar Crown. The set does shake up the format quite a bit thanks to some of the brand new cards, like, of course, some new trainers like the new Stadium, and I'm definitely excited for the set to launch, and I think a lot of decks are going to get a lot more interesting once this set does release. There's a lot of support for Terra Pokemon. Terra Pokemon are looking a lot better now with this new set. I'm definitely excited to try out all the new cards, and if y'all are excited for today's video, make sure to leave a like on the video, and if you're new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 17,000 subs. Let me know what is your favorite card from Stellar Crown, and what do you think is the best card in the entire set? But yeah, let me know down in the comments below, and without further ado, let's get into the best cards from Stellar Crown. Alright, starting these off at number 10, we have Bouffalant. Now, Bouffalant has a really powerful ability for basic colorless decks. Colorless does get a big buff with the set, and Bouffalant is one of the main reasons why. If you have any other Bouffalant in play, your basic colorless Pokemon take 60 less damage from attacks. Now, obviously, the effect doesn't stack, so you can't have, like, 3 Bouffalant in play and make, like, reduction, minus 120, but minus 60 damage is a lot of damage to reduce, and that is a very strong ability. The only way to stop this ability would literally be by taking out a Bouffalant and then hoping your opponent does not bench another Bouffalant. So this ability is definitely really, really powerful. Now, you do have to have 2 Bouffalant in play, which does eat up your bench space, but that's fine when you have access to the new Stadium card. There's also the new Rotom you can play to easily find 2 Bouffalants on your first turn. This is going to be really good with a lot of the big basic colorless Pokemon, like, of course, Terapagos EX is more of a support Pokemon, but I did want to highlight it because that ability is really, really powerful, and there is a lot of room for ways to build Bouffalant. I mean, there's other colorless Pokemon in the format too that might get some value out of playing Bouffalant, and yeah, Bouffalant definitely looks like it's going to be a pretty strong new addition to colorless decks, and I definitely wanted to mention it here in the video. All right, next up is Great Tree, which kind of lives up to the name, as it is a pretty great new Ace-Spec card. Now, it is a brand new Stadium Ace-Spec with a bit of a wall of text, but this wall of text definitely makes it pretty good. It's actually very similar to old stadiums like Broken Time Space and Forest of Giant Plants, with the effect, once during each player's turn, that player may search a deck for a Stage 1 Pokemon that evolves from one of their basic Pokemon, search a deck and evolve that basic into that Stage 1. And if you do that, you can then search a deck for a Stage 2 Pokemon that evolves from the Stage 1 Pokemon and then evolve that Stage 1 Pokemon. The downside of this is you can't use the effect of this if you bench that basic on that same turn. So you can't just bench a Pokemon and then just immediately use Great Tree. You have to wait a turn in order to evolve that Pokemon. So you can't just go Charmander and then randomly in the same turn just get a Charizard out for free. So it is a bit more of a slower stadium in that regard, so you do have to wait a turn, but is a very strong stadium nonetheless. I think it's a very unique stadium that really does let Stage 2 Pokemon flourish. I mean, Stage 2s are like pretty solid right now with the Arven engine, to be honest with you, but Great Tree does make them a lot stronger because you can use Colress's Tenacity to find it for free, and you can get out a Stage 2 pretty quickly. I think, obviously, Pidgeot really likes this card. Being able to get a Pidgeot out of nowhere with Great Tree is really, really good, because, usually, the Pidgey gets targeted pretty easily, but when you have Great Tree, it's not as bad, because you just go Pidgey, Pidgeotto, Pidgeot immediately, which is really, really good, without having to find Candy Pidgeot or anything like that. Just being able to put Pidgeot into play immediately allows you to set up really quickly. Really good with Dusknoir, too. Being able to go from, like, a Duskull to a Dusknoir out of nowhere is also kind of insane. Definitely a really strong Ace-Spec card that I'm definitely excited to try out. And while this Ace-Spec might not see a ton of play right away, it definitely might see play as more powerful Stage 2 Pokemon end up releasing. I think this card definitely is a great card for Stage 2 decks, and it's a welcome addition to the format. All right, at the number 8 spot, we have Crispin, a brand new supporter card that is going to be really good for Terra decks. It does have the effect where you can search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards of different types, reveal them to your opponent, you put 1 energy in your hand, and then you put the other energy onto one of your Pokemon. A great way to accelerate energy into play on a Terra Pokemon, mainly because you can grab the 2 energy, attach one with Crispin, and then attach from your hand with the other energy you grabbed off the Crispin. This is a really good card with cards like Dragapult EX, because effectively now Dragapult can be powered up in a single turn with Crispin, which is really, really strong. And just other Terra Pokemon. We all know the Terra Pokemon, not just like the Dragon Terra Pokemon, but like the actual like basic Terra Pokemon we're getting in this set, like Terapagos and stuff. They all require a lot of energy within their other attack cost, their Terra attack. And in order to power those attacks up, Crispin does help get the job done. There's another card in the set that will help Terra Pokemon out too, which, spoiler alert, is also on this list, but Crispin definitely is a solid enough card that I think will see some play. I mean, just in general, it is energy acceleration at the end of the day, so even if it's not going to see play to support a Terra deck like Dragapult, it's at least going to be a way to put energy into play, which is nice, and energy acceleration supporters, you know, they're nice to have in the format, and this one isn't super OP because it's not like it draws you 3 cards or anything. It just grabs you 2 energy, one goes in your hand, the other goes on a Pokemon. Pretty strong effect, and I definitely am excited to try out Crispin in the future. Alrighty, then next up we have Fan Rotom, and this card is really only good for 1 turn, but that 1 turn you can use it makes your deck so much more stronger and consistent. Its ability, Fan Call, once during your first turn, you may search your deck for 3 colorless Pokemon with 100 HP or less, reveal them, and put them in your hand. You can't use more than 1 Fan Call ability during your turn, so you can't just like Fan Call, spam. But yeah, Fan Call is really good because you can easily set up and grab a lot of Pokemon that you need to support your engine of colorless Pokemon. Obviously, the big ones you can grab are Bouffalant, and then, of course, the brand new Hoot, and Noctowl, which are going to be very good cards to have in the format. Fan Rotom also synergizes really nicely with the brand new Stadium card that lets you bench up to 8 Pokemon, because this card grabs you 3 Pokemon for free, basically. It's a very strong ability that, like I said, really only is good on your first turn, but that 1 turn you can use it, it does set you up. I mean, being able to just grab, like, 2 Hoot and a Noctowl is really good. You can also grab a double Bouffalant if you want to immediately go for the Bouffalants. You can grab Pidgeys and stuff if you're playing a Pidgeot on your deck. Like, there's a lot of things you can grab with this. Like, Bidoof is another big one. You know, you can't grab Bibarel or Pidgeot EX, but still, grabbing the basics is really good. It's a consistency card, and consistency is always king. And I definitely think that Fan Rotom will see quite a bit of play in the format, and even as more colorless Pokemon do come out over the next couple years, this card might get even better as time goes on. Who knows? Now, colorless Pokemon are getting so much stronger within this new set, and one of the best examples of that is the new Glass Trumpet, which can only be used if you have a Terra Pokemon in play. However, you can choose up to 2 of your bench colorless Pokemon and attach a basic energy from your discard pile to each of them, a really strong effect. Now, this card is really good alone with something like Terapagos EX, because you can power up Terapagos EX's secondary attack that needs 3 different energy types. This card is also really good with cards like Blissey EX. Blissey EX does have the ability to move energy around, and when you Glass Trumpet energy onto Blissey, you can move the energy around with Blissey, which is a really cool effect that Glass Trumpet does provide. Again, the only downside with it is you do need to have a Terra Pokemon in play. You can't just randomly play this in like any deck that can use colorless Pokemon. You have to make sure there's a Terra Pokemon on your bench, but that's fine because the effect of Glass Trumpet is really good. Again, really good with Terapagos and pretty good with Blissey EX. I think those are the 2 main Pokemon that Glass Trumpet will see play with, but this card definitely warrants some success. I mean, it's a pretty good card. Being able to put 2 energy into play is nuts, and I mean, we've even been seen in Japan, Glass Trumpet being used with like Darkrai V-Star and Terapagos as a means to get energy into play, because it's even stronger than Dark Patch in some regards, as it can put 2 energy into play. Yeah, this card is really, really strong, and I'm definitely excited for Glass Trumpet to come out and see what we can cook up with some of the wacky stuff we can play with Glass Trumpet and Blissey and stuff. All right, and at number 5, we have the brand new supporter card, Briar. Now, this card is really only going to be good with one specific archetype, but that archetype is really going to make Briar a pain in the butt to play around. Now, it does have the effect you can only use this card if your opponent has exactly 2 prize cards remaining, and then until the end of the turn, if your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out by damage from one of your Terra Pokemon's attacks, you take an extra prize card. Now, you know what that means. Briar with Charizard EX is a huge deal. Now, Charizard EX, we all know, is one of the strongest decks in the format, but Briar is about to make Charizard even stronger. Now, to be honest, Briar is such a scary card because it allows Charizard to win the game almost out of nowhere. There's a lot of interesting things you can do with Briar, because even if your opponent has 3 prize cards remaining, you can just force them down to 2 prizes by playing Dusknoir or Dusclops, which is what makes Briar so good. Because, well, you can play around it by just kind of staying in a weird prize trade. If your opponent just runs Dusknoir in their Charizard deck, they can just pop the Dusknoir and then force you down to 2 prizes. And a lot of the time, that literally wins them the game. Sometimes they can Dusknoir for a knockout, and then they can Briar for game, which is kind of disgusting. This card is definitely going to be really scary to play against in Charizard, and to be honest with you, I'm not really going to enjoy a Charizard meta. If Charizard actually becomes S tier because of Briar, that's going to be a little problematic in my opinion, because I think that's a little too good But Briar is definitely a very strong card for Charizard, and that's really the only deck I think that's going to play it. I mean, okay, it might see a bit of play within Terapagos or maybe Dragapult, but the deck that definitely benefits the most from Briar is Charizard, and this card is definitely going to make Charizard an even bigger threat within the meta when it already has access to Dusknoir. Again, don't know why Charizard has to keep getting this good, but Briar definitely is going to be a good card for Charizard, and definitely be ready when playing against Charizard, because you have to be ready to try to play around this card the best you can, which is really hard to do. All right, next up, we got Sparkling Crystal here at number 4, a very strong new Ace-Spec tool card for Tera Pokemon, mainly good with Dragapult EX. Attacks used by the Tera Pokemon this card is attached to cost 1 energy less of any type. That is really, really good. If you put this onto your Dragapult EX, you can use Phantom Dive for 1 energy. You can just go Sparkling Crystal, Fire, or Psychic Energy, Phantom Dive for 1 energy. Being a tool card means this card obviously synergizes really well with Arven. You could literally just go Arven for Sparkling Crystal, Rare Candy, which is kind of bonkers. This card is definitely going to make Dragapult a whole lot better. Probably going to be the optimal Ace-Spec to play within Dragapult, to be honest with you, because this card is just that good. Now, obviously, it's good with Dragapult, but you can use it with other Tera Pokemon like Terapagos or Galvantula. Yeah, you could even use it with Charizard if you really had to, even though you probably wouldn't want to use it with Charizard. But yeah, any Tera Pokemon does benefit from Sparkling Crystal, and it's definitely a very strong card. Now, I am having it at number 4, not any higher on the list, because at the end of the day, it is your Ace-Spec in your deck. You are going to be forced with a decision to play this card over something like Prime Catcher or Unfair Stamp. So it definitely does have a lot of rivalry within the TCG, which is why I couldn't put it any higher on the list. But I think this card is very, very good and is going to mainly make Dragapult a whole lot stronger. Dragapult is literally a top deck in Japan right now because of this card. All right, into the top 3. Starting things off, we got Terapagos EX, easily the strongest EX card within this set, and it's definitely going to be a very nice card to have in the format. It is a colorless basic Pokemon with 230 HP, so right off the bat, if you play this with the Bouffalant we talked about earlier, this card takes 60 less damage, basically making your opponent have to do 290 or more damage to 1-hit KO Terapagos. And it does have 2 attacks, both of which I think are actually pretty good. Your first attack, Unified Beatdown, for 2 colorless energy, which does work with the double turbo, does 30 damage, and if you go second, you can't use the attack. However, you can do 30 damage for each of your bench Pokemon. Of course, you can fill your bench up with the new Area 0 Underdepth to do even more damage, and you can hit really hard for just a single energy, and you can have a lot of protection with Bouffalant. Your other attack isn't bad either if you want to play it with Glass Trumpet, Crystal, Crispin, stuff like that. Crown Opal does 180 damage, and then during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic non-colorless Pokemon. So this could be really annoying for decks like Raging Bolt and Miraidon to deal with. Now, obviously, Roaring Moon could Frenzy Gouge you, but still, Terapagos' other attack is also very useful if you want to build your deck around playing that too, with the basic energy requirement and Crispin and Glass Trumpet. You could definitely make Terapagos work. Terapagos definitely looks like it could be a brand new archetype within this format. It's also a really good card to have with the brand new Stadium card, which we'll talk about very, very soon, because Terapagos could be a good default card to play with that new Stadium. Definitely a very strong card, and definitely a card you want to pick up a couple copies of if you can get your hands on this card. And it could also be a brand new archetype within the format that sees quite a bit of play. All right, and at the number 2 spot, we have Noctowl. Now, this card is really, really good because it is a consistency card, and we all love consistency. Its ability, Jewel Hunt, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, if you have any Tera Pokemon in play, you can search your deck for up to 2 trainers, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Really strong effect, very similar to the old Shady Dealings Inteleon, which did something similar because when you evolved the Inteleon from the Drizzle, you got 2 trainers from your deck. Now, this card does do something similar. Now, the downside with Noctowl is, like, 1, you have to have a Tera Pokemon in play, so you can't put it like any deck unless you have a Tera Pokemon already in the deck. But then you also, of course, have to, only use it once. You can't scoop up net your Noctowl like you could in Inteleon, but still, this card is really, really good and is a great consistency boost for a lot of decks. It's going to be a staple within Terapagos. Decks like Palkia are going to play this. Even Raging Bolt has been starting to play Noctowl now because it allows them to be able to get 2 trainers, which is really good because they're already playing the Teal Mask Ogerpon in the deck, which is already a Tera Pokemon. This card also could work within Charizard EX, as Charizard is a Tera Pokemon. This card is definitely a very, very strong card for the format and just a consistency boost. Again, it's really good with Fan Rotom because you could Fan Rotom for like Hootoots and Noctowl on your first turn to set you up, which is really, really cool. So definitely a really powerful card that I think will only get better as time goes on, and maybe as more draw engines leave the format, like Bibarel and stuff, this card will only get better as a good engine to have within the format. All right, before we get to number one, I did want to highlight some honorable mentions here that didn't quite make the list. The first one is Galvantula, which I think I would have as my de facto number 11 spot on this list. It's got two really strong attacks. You got Charge Web, does 110 damage. If your opponent's active is an EX or a V, you do 110 more damage. Not bad, 220, pretty solid numbers to hit. Of course, being a Lightning Pokemon means you can like one-shot Palkia and stuff. And then you have the other attack, which I think is going to be the main way Galvantula is going to see play. It does 180 damage for a Grass, Lightning, and a Fight energy. However, you discard all the energy from this Pokemon, and then during your opponent's next turn, they can't play any items from their hand, which is kind of crazy because obviously item lock is really, really strong, especially when you're doing 180 damage. That's a lot of pressure you're putting on your opponent. Galvantula is a very strong card, and I definitely wanted to highlight it because a lot of the decks we've seen from Japan have been using a Galvantula really just for the item lock attack. Like, they've been building the deck around building up that item lock attack every turn through Regis or through Blissey, Glass Trumpet. Definitely a really cool card, and I'm definitely excited to try it out when it releases. Another EX I wanted to highlight here is the brand new Hydrapple EX, which could be a really cool new way to play Grass, and actually could make Grass even better with its ability Ripening Charge that once during turn, you may attach a basic Grass energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. If you do, you heal 30 from it. The heal effect is cool. The main effect, though, is putting Grass energy into play due to how good it is with Hydrapple's Syrup Storm attack. That does 30 damage plus 30 more damage for each Grass energy on all of your Pokemon. So you flood the board with Grass energy through Hydrapple, through Teal Mask Ogerpon, and you're doing a ton of damage. Being a Grass Pokemon ain't bad against stuff like Charizard, and you also have 330 HP, making Hydrapple really, really bulky. And then I wanted to mention Joltik because while the Galvantula is good, Joltik is also pretty nutty with the attack Battery Charge. For one colorless energy, you can search your deck for up to 2 basic Grass and 2 basic Light energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. That is a nutty effect. I mean, that is a lot of energy you're putting into play for 1 energy cost. I mean, that attack alone can charge up an Iron Hands the X out of nowhere, which is really, really good. Obviously, Joltik is perfect with Galvantula because you can put all the energy onto your Galvantula to charge up for the attack. Definitely a really powerful card. I wanted to highlight Joltik because it's just kind of an insane card. I mean, well, obviously, Electric Generator does exist to, like, kind of balance it in a way, but this card is still really, really good in my opinion, and I didn't want to mention this card for what it's worth. Finally, I wanted to mention a cool one-prize Pokemon is the Slowking with the attack Inspirational Challenge, where discard the top card of your deck. If that card is a Pokemon without a rule box, you can choose one of that Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. Now, Slowking, I think, works best potentially with a ton of random attackers. Some of the things I've seen is Onix from Pokemon Go with Gardevoir, where you can Gardevoir damage on Slowking, and then you can discard the Onix and do 50 damage for each damage counter on Slowking. Easily one at killing stuff. Slowking does synergize nicely with the new Academy at Night Stadium from Shrouded Fable, which allows you to guarantee the Pokemon on top of your deck. Only needing 2 energy isn't bad. You can play this with Gardevoir or Xatu. Really cool new card, and I did want to highlight it because this card looks like it's a lot of fun to play. But yeah, let's see what we had here at the top of the list now. And at number 1, we have Area Zero Underdepths, easily the best and most impactful new card from Stellar Crown. This card is nuts. It's basically like a Skyfield reprint, one of the strongest cards from the X and Y era. If a player has a Terra Pokemon in play, that player can have up to 8 Pokemon on their bench. Now, that is really, really good because obviously benching more than 5 Pokemon makes your deck a whole lot stronger, and there's a lot of combos you can use with it. Now, of course, if you discard the Stadium or the Terra Pokemon, you got to discard the Pokemon from your bench to go back to 5. Still, though, this card is really, really good because up to 8 bench Pokemon being on your bench is nutty. This card is really good with Palkia V-Star because now Subspace Well can do even more damage. Really good with like Raikou and Entei 2, which also have similar attacks. This card also could work really well with the Reggie deck because, yeah, you can put all 6 Regis in play, but bench other Pokemon, so you can Regigigas to other Pokemon, not just specifically the Regis. So this card definitely is going to shake up the format quite a bit, and in my opinion is easily the new format-changing card from the new set. This also is good with like Terapagos and Fan Rotom, or just like any colorless deck. Like the Terapagos deck will probably utilize this, and yeah, this card is pretty broken, I'm not going to lie, and I'm definitely excited to try out Area Zero Underdepth when it comes out, because there's so many combos for it, there's so many ways to play it, and it definitely is easily the best card within Stellar Crown, hands down. Definitely excited to get my hands on this card and try it out, because man, it's looking like it's going to shake up the format in a pretty good way in my opinion. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video here on the best cards from Stellar Crown. Let me know what you think is the best card in the new set. What is your favorite card from the new set? Let me know down in the comments below. I'd be interested here. If you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. Help me on the road to reaching 17,000 subs. If you go on to enjoy the video, leave a like and all that good stuff, and I will see you on another video very soon here on the second channel. Bye-bye.